A simple girl skipped her job interview for a stranger, not knowing he was a millionaire. Now I want to share a real-life incident that some acquaintances from New York told me about. The story began on a cold February day, when the city was pelted with wet snow and Manhattan's streets had turned into a treacherous sheet of ice. A young woman named Emma was heading to the most important job interview of her life. She believed this was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, but fate had other plans. Emma woke up in her small rented studio on the outskirts of Manhattan. She had meticulously planned this day, from choosing the right outfit to pre-ordering a taxi. But the weather ruined it all. The icy roads severely slowed traffic, and cabs were delayed at every intersection. Emma was mentally reviewing her options. If she failed to make it to the interview on time, she could kiss her dream job at the famous Thorn Industries goodbye. Practically sprinting along the sidewalks, she decided that, if need be, she'd run the rest of the way. Anything not to be late. Just then, as she tried to cut through a narrow side street between towering buildings, she heard a dull thud. A few steps later, Emma saw a man lying on the cold ground. He had wobbled and fallen right in front of her, slipping on the ice-coated pavement. Some people would have simply walked by, worried about wasting precious minutes. But Emma had always been empathetic by nature. Without hesitation, she ran over to the stranger, dropped to her knees, and checked to see if he was conscious. He wore an expensive overcoat and was clutching his chest, complaining of sharp pain. Emma quickly recalled the first aid tips she'd learned in school. Being careful not to cause him more discomfort, she asked a few questions. His name, if his head hurt, whether he felt nauseous or dizzy. He was clearly frightened and disoriented, but he managed to respond somewhat coherently. Still, he looked to be in bad shape and asked her to call 911. Torn between her impending interview and concern for this man, Emma dialed the emergency number, gave a brief description of his condition, and provided the address. Time seemed to stand still. She knew every minute counted, both for her career and for this man's life. New York City ambulances usually arrive fast, but they too were slowed by the treacherous weather. Emma took a deep breath and tried to calm him down, urging him to close his eyes and breathe evenly to reduce stress. Suddenly, a thought struck her. If I leave now, he'll be alone out here. What if his condition worsens? She hesitated for only a moment before realizing she couldn't just abandon someone in trouble. In that instant, the possibility of still making it to the interview slipped away. Resolute in her choice to help, she stayed with him until the paramedics arrived. When the ambulance finally pulled up, 2 EMTs helped him onto a stretcher and did a quick assessment. They suspected that he might have injured a rib or suffered a serious internal bruise from the hard fall. Emma felt a pang in her chest. She knew that such a fall can lead to dangerous complications for an older person. The medics thanked her for staying and took the man into the ambulance. Before the doors closed, he managed a faint smile and whispered, "Thank you, miss. I don't know how I can repay you." Emma stood there, watching as the flashing lights disappeared into the snowy haze. Glancing at her phone, she realized she was well past her interview time. She saw she had a missed call from the hiring manager. It was obvious now. Her chance to land a job at Thorn Industries had just slipped away. Feeling tears well up, Emma ducked into a nearby cafe to calm down and collect her thoughts. It was a small place with almost no early morning customers. She ordered a hot coffee and took a seat by the window. Outside, the gray daylight illuminated the street, and passers-by huddled into their scarves, rushing off to their offices. Emma was painfully aware that she'd just missed a shot at joining one of the most prestigious corporations in America, a place she'd dreamt of since her final year of college. To make matters worse, she'd spent most of her savings on suitable interview attire and professional development courses. As she sipped the bitter coffee, she chastised herself for not leaving earlier, for not taking the subway, for every minor detail that might have made a difference. Yet at the same time, she asked herself, could I have done anything else? Walk away from someone in dire need? How could I be so heartless? These conflicting thoughts jostled in her mind, creating a whirlwind of self-reproach and justification. She felt the urge to call her mother, who lived in another state. But she knew her mom had always encouraged her to stand on her own 2 feet. No one was going to solve Emma's financial troubles or rent payments for her. Amid her personal turmoil, a nagging uncertainty persisted. Could I have at least made part of the interview? Maybe they would have given me a chance to explain? But another phone call to the HR department made it clear. They had a very tight schedule, and the vacancy was now filled. Emma ended the call with a feeling that everything around her had lost its meaning. Yet despite the disappointment, she felt no regret for helping the older man. She knew she had done what was right. That evening, her friend Donna, an entry-level administrator at a small IT firm, called to check on her. Hearing Emma's story, Donna offered her a temporary job as an assistant in her office. Low level, but enough to cover basic expenses. Emma accepted, aware that it was better than doing nothing at all. Deep down, though, she felt she was capable of far more. For the next month, Emma worked at Donna's office, sorting documents, answering phone calls, and organizing emails. The atmosphere was friendly enough, but it gave her the sense that this was only a short-term fix. The pay covered her rent and food, leaving no room to tackle her student loans or build any savings. With each passing day, Emma felt her dreams slipping further away. She sent out resumes to different companies, but got no responses. Still, she refused to let her spirit sink. From time to time, she found herself thinking about the stranger she'd helped. I hope he's okay, she mused. She even scanned local news stories for any details but found nothing specific. In a city as vast as New York, finding a random stranger was like searching for a needle in a haystack. Several weeks later, just as winter was drawing to a close, Emma unexpectedly received an email from hawthorneindustries.com. At first, she assumed it was a mistake or yet another automated newsletter, but her heart started racing. The message stated that Richard Thorne, the CEO of Thorne Industries, wanted her to contact him personally. At the bottom were the phone number and name of his assistant, Mrs. Gray. Barely able to contain her excitement, Emma called immediately. Her voice quivered as she asked if the message was actually meant for her. The secretary confirmed. Yes, Mr. Thorne would like to speak with you in person. Could you come to our main office sometime soon? Emma nearly dropped her phone from the shock. She wasted no time setting a date and time, desperately trying to mask her nerves. Arriving at the sleek corporate building of Thorne Industries, she stepped into a grand lobby gleaming with glass partitions and marble floors. Busy professionals wearing company badges hurried back and forth. Emma headed to the elevator, ascended to the 45th floor, and stepped out into a sophisticated reception area marked with the TI logo. She was asked to wait in a comfortable chair, her hands clasped in her lap, her heart pounding. At last, a tall, distinguished man in a business suit appeared in the reception area. He looked confident, though there were faint signs of recent illness on his face. Emma recognized him instantly as the stranger she'd helped that icy winter day. He gave her a warm smile and invited her into his office. Inside, the decor was understated yet impeccable. Neatly arranged shelves of documents and wide windows overlooking the city skyline. "Good afternoon, miss," he said. "Allow me to introduce myself. Richard Thorne. Though we've technically met under less than ideal circumstances." Emma, still shaken, nodded and noticed the bandage wrapped around his right arm, indicating he had not fully recovered. She managed only a quiet greeting. Afraid of saying something wrong, Richard thanked her for her act of kindness and explained that, on the day of his fall, he had suffered severe bruising to several ribs, but thankfully no major breaks. He confessed that he'd never really had a chance to thank her properly, and he'd decided to track her down. When he discovered that she had been en route to an interview at his very company, one she missed to help him, he was deeply moved enough, in fact, to grant her an opportunity to prove herself at Thorn Industries, at least through a paid internship. Emma listened, hardly able to breathe. Is this some kind of joke? She wondered. Yet Richard spoke calmly and sincerely, explaining that genuine compassion is far rarer in the business world than technical expertise, and people who exhibit such qualities often make the best leaders and motivators. He said he believed that kind of person could be invaluable to the company. Emma eagerly accepted the internship offer in the marketing department. Her overwhelming feelings were gratitude and relief. She was being given a second chance she thought she had lost forever. Emma's life at Thorn Industries began in earnest. She was given a small workspace in the bustling open-plan office alongside other interns and junior specialists. Her immediate supervisor was Max Lawrence, the marketing team leader. He made it clear that they had a large pool of interns, high standards, and fierce competition. But Emma wasn't intimidated. She was ready to work overtime to show she deserved a permanent position. In the early days, she was assigned simpler tasks: market analysis, compiling sales reports. She handled each task methodically, soaking up every suggestion and correction. Along the way, she learned plenty about how a major corporation really works. Occasionally, Richard Thorn would pass by her area, greet her, or give a quick nod of encouragement before heading to critical meetings. Emma tried not to seek out his attention, wary of stirring up office gossip. Of course, rumors started anyway. Her colleagues whispered that Emma had gotten in through connections, and some eyed her suspiciously. One employee in particular, Amanda, who worked on similar projects, saw Emma as a direct threat. In any large office, there's always someone weaving intrigue, and Amanda played that role well. She spread stories that Emma was simply the boss's favorite and had no real skills. Emma felt stung by the gossip. One day, while preparing a presentation, Amanda approached her with a mocking smile and asked if Emma might happen to deliver some materials personally to Mr. Thorn. Emma understood the implied insult, that Amanda was suggesting she use her so-called special relationship to gain favor. Mustering self-control, Emma calmly explained she would pass along any documents through their team leader, as per the usual protocol. The encounter taught her to stay firm and protect her reputation. Richard Thorn, too absorbed in larger matters, was unaware of these office politics, but he quietly kept track of Emma's progress by talking with Max about her work. After several weeks of interning, she was given her first major assignment: preparing an in-depth analysis of the company's upcoming product launch. Emma threw herself into the project wholeheartedly, studying market data, comparing marketing methods, and brainstorming creative approaches. Max was impressed with her dedication and decided she was ready to present her findings at a team-wide meeting. Her presentation turned out a success. Senior board members praised Emma for her innovative ideas and thorough research. Richard, seated in the front row, noticed the glow in her eyes when she talked about her work. After the meeting ended, he approached her privately and said, "You exceeded my expectations. Keep it up." Those words meant more to Emma than any formal award. Over time, she and Richard began to intersect more often, whether he needed clarification on her reports or sought the intern's perspectives on new strategies. What started as purely work-related chats turned into more personal conversations. They discovered they shared a passion for psychology books and had a mutual appreciation for classic jazz. Richard began inviting her to lunches in the corporate cafeteria, where they spoke more freely. Emma felt a growing bond that went beyond professional respect. Still, she tried to maintain a professional distance, wary of the inevitable rumors. She also didn't want anyone to think she was taking advantage of her boss's interest. Nevertheless, the deeper connection forming between them grew stronger by the day, fueled by mutual respect, common interests, and a genuine emotional warmth neither had anticipated. A few months into her internship, Emma was no longer a newcomer. She worked alongside full-time staff, and her suggestions were increasingly implemented. Amanda eventually dropped her open hostility, realizing Emma truly had talent and that trying to compete with her was pointless. Max recommended to upper management that Emma be hired permanently, praising her professionalism and strong interpersonal skills. Then, one morning, Emma arrived at the office to find a gathering of senior managers in the conference room. A hush fell over the staff. It seemed that something big was about to happen. Max invited Emma into the conference room along with the rest. It turned out that Thorne Industries was about to sign a significant partnership agreement, and during the ceremony, the company would publicly commend employees who had made an outstanding contribution. Emma looked away, thinking it was too early for her to expect any accolades, until suddenly she heard her own name. Richard personally handed her a certificate recognizing her innovative approach to marketing. He also announced that from that day on, she would be a full-time member of the department. Applause filled the room. After the event, when most people had filed out, Richard quietly approached Emma. He seemed more nervous than usual. "May I speak with you for a moment?" he asked, ushering her into his office. Emma noticed his hands were trembling slightly, and she felt her own heart leap in response. In the subdued light of the office, with only the city skyline visible through the windows, Richard turned to Emma, looking directly into her eyes. He began by thanking her not just for her professional merits, but for the warmth and sincerity she had brought into the office, and especially into his own life. Emma felt a lump in her throat. She could sense what Richard was about to say, and her heart pounded. He admitted he had struggled with his feelings for some time, trying to keep everything strictly professional. But now he couldn't hide how he truly felt. He was in love with her. Emma stood there, tears of happiness welling up. Just months ago, she never could have imagined her life taking such a turn. Yet here they were, both knowing that a boss-employee relationship was fraught with complications, but both overwhelmed by emotions that transcended any rules. Richard clearly had rehearsed his next words. "Emma, you changed my life," he said. "I'm not sure if now is the perfect time to say this, but I don't want to wait. You've shown me that true kindness and real talent can go hand in hand. And I'd like you to be more than just an employee or a friend. Will you be my wife?" He spoke so simply, yet with such sincerity, Emma could hardly believe her ears. People often pause to think in such moments, but Emma didn't hesitate for an instant. Everything inside her told her that he was the one. A man worth risking her heart for. A man she wanted to start a new chapter with in her life. She breathed the word, "Yes." Richard smiled, and she saw tears glistening in his eyes. He gently took her hand, and they stood together quietly, both aware of the gravity of that moment. Beyond the office walls, the normal workday rumbled on. Papers rustled, phones rang, employees chatted about upcoming tasks. For them, however, the world was on pause. They knew colleagues would have questions and rumors would fly. But deep down, they believed that by trusting each other, they could overcome any obstacles. And so, a simple act of kindness on a wet, icy day in New York City became the foundation not only of Emma's blossoming career, but of a new, heartfelt chapter in both their lives. This story proves once more that sometimes our most selfless decisions, those that seem to jeopardize our own interests, can lead to the greatest twists of fate. If Emma hadn't stopped to help that stranger on the slippery sidewalk, she would never have met the love of her life or been given the chance to fulfill her potential in a place where she was genuinely needed. That's how two hearts found each other in the demanding conditions of a big city. Though there were plenty of challenges along the way, it was ultimately sincerity and willingness to sacrifice for someone else that led them to a happy ending. If this story inspired you, don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel, where you'll find more real-life tales that prove kindness always paves the way to success, and sometimes to love.